Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. And this video we're going to start with Kherson and Krynki direction because we have lots of updates about the foothold itself and about the situation around. First and the most important is that since the beginning of 15th of November, the Russians managed to destroy or damage around 50 targets with Lancet. Those who had tanks, artillery positions, maybe warehouses and so on. So just imagine yourself that for the previous 2 months, the Ukrainians lost up to 50 artillery systems or maybe tanks or something like this, or combination or something like this. And obviously during this phase of the special military operation, the Ukrainians don't have possibilities to replace this weapon. Furthermore, we got for statistics, of course, maybe for history, some very interesting pictures. For example, on this picture we can see the Krynki somewhere in the mid of November. As you can see, according to this photo, there are buildings. First of all, there are places where the Ukrainians can have foothold, fire positions, maybe some basements, maybe some positions that they can hide under Russian fire. And once again, this photo was made 2 months ago in November, and this is the photo of the current situation of the same territory from the same angle, but this photo was made maybe yesterday or day before yesterday, somewhere in the mid of January. And as you can see, nothing left. Nothing survived under very heavy Russian fire with aviation bombs, with stealth flamethrower systems and so on. And this is one of the reasons why the Ukrainians took a decision just to run away from this territory, because there are no places where they can hide. We got few details about the battles inside of the village, and according to information we have, according to some Russian more or less reliable sources, the Ukrainians still control a part of the village. To be more precise, the some parts of the village with basements. The foothold is not very big, and the situation and the foothold is getting more and more difficult and more dangerous for Ukrainians themselves. There are no storm meets and storm attacks from the Russian side. The Russians are bombing and attacking this territory with artillery and with drones, forcing the Ukrainians to leave this territory. What does it mean? First of all, to understand this, we need a few more things. For example, the report from Syriac. It is very he has described everything very clearly. It is important to know that gray area is not the same as control. The situation in Krynki is quite complicated for the Ukrainian side, but that does not mean that the Russian troops are in the center of the locality, as some reports say. We have to wait for the geographic evidence to confirm this. So, for better understanding, we need to understand that Ukrainians, probably some forces were left, some rearguard forces or something like this. Maybe some wounded soldiers were left who don't have possibilities to evacuate from this area. Furthermore, the river is cold and the river is covered with ice, which means that very likely the Ukrainians have their positions at least on this side of Krynki, on this island. And from this territory, the Ukrainians still have possibilities to, let's say, establish some fire control over the edge positions or the buildings and the territory in Krynki along the bank of the river, Казачья-Лагерская Конка. So this is the only territory that Ukraine controls. The rest of Krynki is either in the gray zone or maybe already under Russian control. Also important update we got from another more or less reliable Russian source is that the Russians currently are trying to clear the territory. So there are a lot of traps, a lot of bombs, a lot of mines, maybe some abandoned soldiers, troopers inside of the village that still can cause some problems for the Russians. So that's why they're like trying to clear this area, and they're moving very slowly, step by step. Furthermore, during the previous night, we got few geolocations of aviation strikes, of Lancet strikes against the Ukrainian armored vehicles and tanks. For example, on this video, we can see another destroyed Ukrainian tank that the Ukrainians were using to attack the Russian positions or to support Ukrainian positions from hidden area of Tyaginka. Now we are moving further to the next front lines. So we haven't received anything from Zaporozhye area. We have few updates from South Donetsk direction. The Russians continue bombing, or let's say they renew the bombing of the southern part and the central part of Novomikhailivka with different types of weapon. On this video, according to information we have, we might see the use of Fulmur missile from helicopter against the Ukrainian positions in Novomikhailivka. Anyway, this is the south central part. No clashes, no updates about any attempts to enter the village. We got some interesting video from Marinka that was made by the Russian FPV drones. The Russian drone were flying above the territory between Georgievka and Marinka, and the Russians are saying that this territory, also this video claims that the territory is under complete Russian control, which maybe we can use as the evidence and confirmation of Russian progress along the water reservoirs from Marinka to Georgievka. Few armored vehicles Ukrainian destroyed, abandoned, nothing special. When talking about Avdiivka during the previous night and during the previous day and today, the Russians continue bombing the city heavily with aviation bombs, with artillery, with different types of weapons, with tanks, and probably the Russians are still preparing themselves before the next wave of attack with the purpose to cut another piece of Avdiivka during the next few days. Very interesting updates are coming from Solidar direction. We haven't received anything from Bakhmut, but Solidar tell us a lot. According to information we have, the Russians continue their offensive operation in direction of Vesele from three directions: from the central direction inside of the village, from the southwestern direction, and of course from the northeastern direction. According to some more or less reliable sources, the Russians have already improved their positions on the northeast position, and they managed to capture an additional fields, additional square kilometers of the fields, something like this. Other sources, let's say like Russian military expert reported that the Russians have already got the outskirts of Vesele, and currently there are very heavy clashes exactly between or along the first buildings or farms exactly in the city. So the Russians have already, according to Ribber, the Russians have already launched the ground operation inside of the village itself. As you can see, the village is not so big, so there are not so many troopers. This village is located on the hill, and the main purpose of this area is the same as Krynki. The Ukrainians try to keep their forces as the main barrier, and while the Russians are moving, they are always under fire and attack of FPV drones and artillery of Ukrainian forces that located somewhere in Razdolovka, maybe Siversk, maybe Zvanovka, maybe Vyimka. Interesting details are coming from Bilohorivka area, and the Russians continue bombing the village. As a result of another day of clashes and artillery strikes, the Ukrainians lost few more tanks, ammo depots, a few more strongholds were reduced to ruins, and this is like attempts from the Russian side to pin down the Ukrainians and not to allow them to send their reinforcements to the edge positions on this foothold. And we are talking about two areas. The first one is the tree line that located on the northeast of the village, and the second one is the industrial area that located on the southeast. If you remember, just a few days ago we were talking that the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to establish control or to enter this industrial area. And today, for example, we got more updates from the northeastern part from this territory. According to the Russian sources and more or less reliable Russian sources, the Ukrainians were forced to withdraw their positions and retreat from the tree lines along this area. So this is like two resources confirm this information. So as for now, according to just sources, more or less reliable, without any geolocated proofs or confirmations, the Russians established control over this territory. But the thing is that this tree line and this industrial area used to be under Russian control in the previous times, during the previous attacks, and always the Russians, as a result of Ukraine counterattack, lost those positions. So maybe it's nothing special, but maybe this is the beginning of Bilohorivka storm operation. So we'll see. We got a geolocated confirmation of Russian progress on the east of Terny, because if you remember, during the previous months we were adjusting this territory due to appearing of more and more geolocations from the Ukraine, from the Russian side, about less progress than we saw according to Telegram channels and so on. And now we have the 100% confirmation that was published by the 60th Mechanized Brigade of Ukrainian Forces. On that video we might see how the Ukrainians were attacking the Russian Russian infantry with FPV drones in this area, which is 100% sure confirmation of Russian progress. When talking about Sinkovka, we have just one thing. The Russians, when they were defeated and retreat from Sinkovka, started everything from the beginning. And on this video, we see how the Russians, using TOS flamethrower systems, were bombing and attacking the edge positions in Sinkovka, probably as this is the part that was the part of artillery preparation. And maybe right now the Russians are making another attempt to storm the village from the north. And during the previous night, there were a lot of explosions and attacks with missiles in Kharkiv area, but the most critical damage was dealt to Ukrainian positions in Chuguyev. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds you, condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.